This is crazy. Alfa Romeo sent out a safety recall in like the last week while I was filming this. Welcome back to DriveLab, guys. This is episode 2 of our driver score series where we're rating and comparing drivers' cars in a way that matters to people who actually love driving. And using our driver score rubric, we can be really objective about this and less biased. Today's car is my personal 2018 Giulia Quadrifoglio. It has a list of mostly OEM plus modifications that I will go over, as well as some pretty big changes that I made to the car, or I'm currently working on. I'm going to be as unbiased and hard on this car as I can be and really point out its problems as well as the things that it's really good at and why it's a fun car to drive. I am going to zoom in on a very specific aspect of this car because it was the test bed for our wash kit and our formulas. So if you don't know what DriveLab is, we are a car care company and we offer something very specific to the car enthusiast community. It's a way to wash faster with fewer products and fewer steps. And a big question we often get is, will this scratch your paint? And I want to show you what 5 years of not seeing a wash bucket actually does to a car when you have the right tools. Now keep in mind, I am the second owner. This is not a garage queen. It's been on the racetrack. It goes on the road. It gets dirty, it gets washed often. It didn't arrive perfect and it's never ever been paint corrected. So this is real life condition. I've only used our wash method, but I've only had our products to do that in the last couple years. I developed the system before I had the right products. And I know someone will say, you know, it's metallic paint so you can't see all the swirl marks, but here is another Alfa with the exact same paint with swirl marks so that you can see what that looks like. All right, guys, so the paint is not perfect, but the point is it never was in my possession. So our wash kit has, the technique in our formulas has maintained the paint as is for multiple years. And it does such a good job because of one, the two formulas that do the cleaning are formulated together. They have specific chemicals that combine or go before and after, high pH, low pH, as well as some combination of things to dissolve grit so you're not ever wiping anything into your paint. And two, everything is always visible when you're wiping. When you're wiping a panel down, you can see it because it's not covered in white foam and you're not using one wash mitt, you're using multiple towels. You have so much more control. So even though you are taking your time and watching everything, you can still cut the time in half because you have fewer steps, as well as fewer products necessary because they're more versatile. I digress. So I wanna go over the mods really quick and then we're gonna hop into the style score. So biggest mods, for performance probably are the suspension mods. So I have an aftermarket coilover set, or essentially springs and a damper tune that I'm going to talk about in the video or in the driving portion. We did stiffer front thruster arm bushing, camber plates, rear sway bar, end links. Under the hood I have a Squadra tune for 550 horsepower. And some other little things that don't matter as much. This is an aftermarket spoiler. It's the Alfa Racing Edition. The biggest thing that I won't talk about in our drive section, because everything else I will mention, is these front buckets. So this really transformed the car because I did not have the Sparco seats. I had the comfort seats and they were comfortable, but they're also bouncy and unstable and you couldn't really feel what the chassis was doing. I also, made the car lighter by deleting the rear seat. We will put a proper seat delete and half cage in there for harness, as a harness bar and for new harnesses. This was a difficult and expensive modification because there is no bottom bracket made for this car. It all had to be custom, but they match perfectly. And this allows you to really, obviously stay in your seat, but read the chassis and stuff, which allows us to reveal some certain issues. Okay, so, and I'm going to talk about that in the drive section. So for style, the first subcategory, design, I gave this an 8.5. No surprise there. I don't think that needs much explanation. It's one of the most beautiful cars ever made. I think a lot of people think that. But it's not going to be higher than that because it has some kind of less desirable angles, a kind of like bland front end in some ways. And I think a 9+ doesn't have undesirable angles. But I'm not saying this is bad in any way. This is obviously very beautiful. Because of its round curves and less edgy design, or less angular design, I should say, The stance kind of struggles. So here's why. I gave stance a 7. This is because although it's got a nice meaty rear end, there are very few aftermarket wheels that work with this car and the lines of this car because it's so round and curvy. These wheels look amazing, but most wheels do not work with this car. So you're limited, and you're limited with the shape of the wheel well, with the sizes that you can run. So it's so limited in that area. So it looks great, but you can't do much better, and you can't really make it your own without, I've seen like 2 or 3 types of wheels that look good outside of the Alfa Romeo specific designs and stuff. And then for edge, so here's the thing. I give this an 8 for edge, mostly because, so like edge is a wow factor. So edginess, aggressive designs. It does have some of that, but it is very subtle, rounded, and elegant. So you would think I would rate this lower. The reason why I rate it higher is for uniqueness. When people see this car, they don't really know what it is a lot of the time, so they're asking like, what is that? And I think that's a positive thing, in that people kind of are drawn to it or attracted to it because it's unique, and it's doing its own thing. So I gave the edge or the wow factor an 8 because I just think it's not only gorgeous, but it's very special. Let's hop in, find a good road, and get into the rest of the driving portion now. All right, guys. So the first subcategory of sound is tone. I give tone an 8, I believe. Let me check my notes. Yep. So that is about the exhaust tone specifically. And because this has a unique exhaust tone, a unique sound to it, I think that gets the rating pretty high up. And for a V6, it sounds really, really good. I don't think I'll ever give a V6 more than an 8. And while being a V6, that's going to limit its characteristics, although it does have this unique firing order and a unique tone. I have an X pipe again, so it's got this hollow sound to it that's good, and it screams, and overall it's great. I think that's about as good as it can get. Other things like volume and stuff I'm rating later right now are a little bit different, or a different discussion. So for character, I actually rated this at a 7.5. The engine compartment is so insulated, you don't hear any of the engine, which is not super interesting. So it's all exhaust, but you do get some shift farts, and that's why it still gets a 7.5 and not something lower. I really do enjoy those shift farts. So that gets a 7.5. And then for volume, I gave this an 8. And the reasons I give it a higher score, not just because the exhaust is loud enough. I have the back seats out, so it is louder than most cars. I have a slightly modified exhaust, which I think should be factored in because it's a really easy, cheap mod. I'm missing out on the good roads, guys. I need to actually drive. I'll tell you right now, steering in this car is really great. A little vibration. All right, sorry. So yeah, the volume gets an 8 because of its versatility. While you are lacking a lot of noise, it's not loud enough, especially on a stock car. The exhaust is not loud enough at all. The ability for you to turn off the valves, and then these guys, the ability to turn off the valves and turn this car into a spaceship is a huge bonus. This thing can be totally quiet when you want it, and then really loud, or not really loud, but pretty loud and rowdy when you do want it to. So that kind of versatility is why I give volume an 8, especially if you mod it. It's not always about having the loudest car, although being able to go really loud or having a really good sounding engine that sings is better for volume, of course. Okay, so now to performance, which I think is quite a discussion actually. So performance, for power, I gave it an 8.5. This has 550 horsepower in my car, and that is really nice. I think you could go a little bit higher because it's almost perfect, but I have some specific things that I think draw away from this category. So 550 horsepower, especially with this tune, that makes the power more deliver smoothly, because the stock tunes, the throttle mapping makes it too boost happy. So it's not as, it's kind of annoying. You can't modulate the throttle on track. you have very little control. It's just on boost, out of boost. So it's just kind of, it's weak. But with this tune, this power, it is almost maximum fun on the road, especially within reason. And you could get more from a faster car. But I think what really rates this category is your ability to change that. Because I adapted to this car. It is not fast to me, but I'm not rating that low. But I can't get much more out of it. You're not gonna get much more than 600 horsepower without swapping out the turbos and doing a lot to this car. So it's not really a good, that's gonna take away from the power rating. Like a good example of this would be like an M3. Has this power, it is fast, you adapt to it, you do a little tune, and you can get up to 750 horsepower without any modifications, really. And that is just like perfection, because you can get the maximum amount of usability and fun out of power for the street, and then move that goalpost as you go. So this gets stuck with an 8.5. And I gave handling 8 because, again, my car handles well, stock car not so much, meet in the middle. So this is an 8.5, stock car would be a 7.5. The reason is because the stock car is, it struggles with understeer. It's very squishy, and it's very squishy and struggles with turn-in and everything at higher speeds, especially on the track. And this car does not, because we did the front steering bushing, or the thruster arm bushing, stiffen that up, camber, aftermarket camber, because the stock camber limit is really low. So this has like 2.5 degrees. So it turns in really well. The ability to upgrade the suspension in this to the GTAM suspension, damper tune, and springs from Alfissimo for like half or less than half the cost of a good coilover makes this OEM plus solution like the best thing for this car and for the money. It makes that, and all the other mods, makes the car really transform and handle very, very well. The reason why it's only an 8 is because, 1, OEM is worse. 2, it has some flaws. The chassis is too squishy, and it gets this kind of wandery, wiggly feeling when you're getting really rowdy with the driving that take away from the handling. And ultimately, it's a front engine car, so it's never gonna be perfect. But that's part of the fun too, which is why Thrill, I gave an 8. And I think that's a worthy score, because that's a high score for Thrill. This is a very fun car to drive, and the power is awesome. I am adapted, so I'm trying to keep that in mind. Like, you know, being used to this power level, doesn't struggle with corners. Being used to this power level takes away from the thrill a little bit, but I think ultimately, so someone else might find it more thrilling, but a lot of people say it's kind of rowdy and less predictable, and they need to, you know, get used to that, and that's very thrilling. But ultimately, the little flaws with the chassis, and probably my oversized tires making that worse for like wiggle, make it so that there's certain instances where you're like, I don't really trust this fully. It's not perfect, and that can make you a little less confident. I'm adapted to it. I find it very fun. I always drive with race mode and traction control off, so I have to like kind of manage everything, and I think that's a good thing for me. But yeah, I gave that an 8. Okay, so for connection, I give steering an 8 because it's incredibly sharp. It weights up nicely. It's not too light for an Italian car. They do that a lot. It's really direct. It gives you a lot of usable feedback. And the only reason why it's not higher is because it doesn't give you strong force feedback. It doesn't give you as much as you'd love to work with. I mean, I honestly think a lot of people might come in this car and rate it higher than an 8 for steering, but I'm just trying to not be super biased. I love the steering in this car. I just wish it had more actual feedback or vibration. It is an electric steering rack, so that's just what you get. And then for sensations, doing more talking and less paying attention to how I'm shifting. For sensation, I gave this a 7.5. It does struggle in this category. with all of the modifications I've done, there's plenty of chassis vibration, road noise, exhaust volume, all kinds of great things. The shift, like feelings, the kick, like all of that is really good. The problem that it really has is the brakes. You're not getting that like feedback in the pedal at all because it's an electronic braking system. It's very squishy. I have aftermarket pads that make it more linear and better, but the OEM setup is like a button and it progresses up and like clamps, and it's really lame. And with these pads, it's good, but it's not like you're getting any feedback from the brake pedal. But maybe I'm being too hard on it. I'm gonna leave it at a 7.5, especially because an OEM car is very quiet and controlled. Mine is different, but that's not fair because it's heavily modified. Now for flow. As I flow through these turns, does this car have good immersion? For the most part, yes. It does have some squishy points, some wiggles that break your focus because you're like, this feels a little bit sketch. So you can't feel your edge and your limit as well as some other cars. And that's why I give this an 8. It's really fun. You really get into it. The steering's friggin' awesome, but ultimately it can't score higher than an 8 because it has plenty of flaws that take away from your immersion. It's just really fun. So it flows together well with some major chassis flaws. Maybe with some bracing, you know, putting a roll cage in, some stickier, more rigid tires, sidewalls, everything will be vastly improved. But you know, this is kind of where we're at. I think a OEM car might even have better flow because it's less darty than mine. Alfa Romeo has sent out a safety recall in the last week while I was shooting this for something they should have done a long time ago. And it's a perfect opportunity to talk about the elephant in the room, which is reliability with these cars, which I think you should hear from an actual owner and the real story behind this. We are going to total the score and calculate it and put it on the board with the 718. That's exciting to see how that compares. But I want to talk about this because these have a horrible reputation for reliability, and I think it's mostly misunderstood. Please understand that this is an Italian car, so the electronic gremlins come at any price point, which is not an excuse. It's really, really, really embarrassing and stupid. Every single Ferrari I've ever driven has given me a code while reviewing the car. Like the window of timing, it couldn't be more ridiculous when you have a car for like an afternoon and it still throws a code. I had a brand new 812 GTS after parking it to eat lunch, get back in and throw every code in the moon and go into under the moon, under the sun, and go into limp mode. So no Italian car is safe. You have to be signing up for that. And when the battery is low, the ECU triggers, something happens, the low voltage causes all of the warning lights to come on. And there's all kinds of little stuff like that that freaked people out, and there are things you can do to not have that happen. I have not had any of that happen with this car, pretty much period. But I have had one issue, and that's what this recall is about, and this is something they should have done a long time ago. Sometimes when your fuel is low and it's hot out, the car won't start. And this is a fuel pump issue and a fuel pump module issue, and it can't generate enough pressure to start the car. And this is something that was one of the main issues a long time ago. They released an updated fuel pump that you could buy, install, and warranty would cover it, and it fixed this problem. The real issue is that in the very beginning, people did not have access to this solution. Techs didn't know that it was a problem because they were just getting to learn this car. It was developed too quickly. And so customers didn't have support. So they hated their experience, and obviously they ran away from the brand. Which left us with excellent depreciation if you liked buying used cars. But basically, the reason why the recall came out is because it started to cause some people, or I've heard of this in the last like 3 years, this is not brand new, the car would shut down while they were driving, which is incredibly dangerous and scary. And so Alfa Romeo should have done this a long time ago, but that is the main issue, and now it is fixed. So great. On to the score. So here are all the individual scores, and we're going to total them. For style, we got a 7.8. For sound, we got a 7.8. For performance, we have an 8.16, and for connection, we have a 7.8. There's some extra decimals and stuff in there. Remember, these are weighted at different values, and that's why these actually total to a final score of 7.9. All right, I'm really happy with this score. It should not be in the 8s. 8s are reserved for really good driver's cards without compromises. 9s are legendary cars that I have not driven, or maybe I have, but I have not scored, and these are probably very expensive and I hope to drive them one day. I don't know what they are, I'm just saying, speculating. And for something that is an amazing driver's car or a car to drive, but has compromises, or is compromised, I think a 7.8 is perfect. Also, if this got too close or beat a GT4, I would have been questioning my entire system. So this is great. If you guys enjoyed this, if you have any questions about the scoring or the car, or you want to argue about reliability in the comments, please do so. Next up, we have a 981 GT4, which I'm really excited to drive. Someone has reached out graciously to just let us borrow theirs. If you're in the Bay Area and you want to lend us a car for us to score, we'd appreciate it so much. We'll hook you up with a full detail and some products. And if you're a customer of ours already, even better, let us know. It's a really fun, great experience for everyone always. So like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.